In August of 1883, the Earth didn't erupt. It detonated. 13,000 Hiroshima bombs. 1 geographic point. 0 warning. What you are about to hear is not a story about a volcano. It is a forensic breakdown of the single most violent physical event in recorded human history. And the numbers are going to make every weapon humanity has ever built look like a light match held up to the sun. A single atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima carried 15 kilotons of explosive force. That number leveled an entire city, killed tens of thousands of people instantly, and left a radiation signature that persisted for decades. It is the benchmark by which humanity measures catastrophic destruction. It is the ceiling of what the human mind accepts as real power. The Krakatoa did not care about that ceiling. On August 27, 1883, the volcanic island of Krakatoa in the Sunda Strait between Java and Sumatra released 200 megatons of energy in a single detonation. To put that in terms your brain can actually process, 1 megaton equals 1,000 kilotons. The Hiroshima bomb was 15 kilotons. Krakatoa released 200 million kilotons of equivalent force. The island itself was 12 square kilometers of solid volcanic rock. Dense, ancient, geologically compressed over millions of years of tectonic pressure. In the seconds following the final detonation, that island did not collapse. It did not sink. It was converted, chemically and physically, from solid matter into gas, ash, and particulate debris. And if you look closely, the process was not gradual. The rock did not melt first and then vaporize. The pressure at the base of the volcanic chamber exceeded anything solid matter can withstand. And the transition from rock to gas happened at a speed that makes the word explosion feel entirely inadequate. Now let me give you a reference and let's pay close attention. The detonation of a standard military explosive generates roughly 1 million psi at its epicenter. The pressure at the base of Krakatoa's magma chamber in the final moments before the collapse is estimated in the historical physical records to have exceeded that by orders of magnitude that engineers still use as theoretical benchmarks for material failure studies. The rock did not resist. There was no resistance possible. At that pressure threshold, the molecular bonds holding solid stone together simply cease to function, and matter changes state not because of heat alone, but because the compressive force removes the possibility of solidity. What remained where the island had been was a caldera, a collapsed void in the ocean floor, 270 meters deep. The island of 12 square kilometers had become a hole, not a crater with edges and debris fields. A hole. The material that had constituted the island was now distributed across the atmosphere in a column of ash and gas that reached 80 kilometers into the sky, punching through the troposphere, through the stratosphere, and into regions of the atmosphere where no volcanic material had any business being. This is the fact that scares me the most. Just try to imagine it. In the seconds after the detonation, anyone within a 40-kilometer radius of the island was not in danger. They were simply gone. The concept of survival at that distance from a 200 megaton detonation is not something the physical record supports. The energy release did not diminish quickly enough at that range for any organic matter to remain intact. The forensic conclusion is not dramatic. It is simply mathematical. Distance, energy, pressure, time. The math does not leave room for exceptions. This is what 13,000 atomic bombs look like. Honestly, a geological catastrophe like this completely terrifies me. But if there's one comforting thought, it's that death would be quick and painless. It would happen so fast that you wouldn't even hear the sound of the explosion. Now, the topic we are about to cover would make you wish you'd been incinerated right at the epicenter. Without a doubt, the people who suffered the most were the ones far away from the blast. You would definitely prefer death.
The water! Run for your lives! Oh God, save us! Run!
The sound reached the island of Rodriguez, 4,800 kilometers away, clearly enough that the British garrison stationed there logged it as distant cannon fire and sent search parties looking for a ship in distress. There was no ship. What they heard was a volcano that had detonated nearly 5,000 kilometers away. That is the opening data point. Now let's build the full picture. The Krakatoa detonation generated the loudest sound ever recorded in human history. Not the loudest natural sound. The loudest sound. The shockwave did not behave like noise, it behaved like a physical object. A wall of compressed atmosphere moving outward from the Sunda Strait at the speed of sound. carrying enough pressure to interact with solid matter in ways that sound has no business interacting with. At 100 miles from the epicenter, the atmospheric pressure wave measured 170 decibels. At that level, the pressure differential between the wave and the surrounding atmosphere is sufficient to rupture eardrums instantaneously, collapse sinus cavities, and generate hemorrhaging in lung tissue through pure acoustic force alone. No debris, no heat, no secondary explosion, just air compressed and released at an amplitude that treats the human body as an obstacle rather than a bystander. Your lungs, your sinuses, your middle ear, every air-filled space inside you operates at ambient atmospheric pressure. The shockwave arrives at a pressure dramatically higher than that. Your body has no mechanism for equalizing that differential fast enough. The anatomical result is pulmonary barotrauma, the physical tearing of lung tissue caused by pressure differential alone without any penetrating force involved. You are not struck by anything. The air simply stops being air and becomes a wall, and your body fails against it. The shockwave then did something no man-made explosion has ever replicated. It circled the Earth 7 times. Barometers in London, Paris, New York, and Sydney recorded the pressure anomaly passing over them repeatedly over several days. Scientists cross-referencing data between observatories on multiple continents reached the same unavoidable conclusion. The pressure signature of Krakatoa was still traveling through the global atmosphere days after the explosion, registering on precision instruments 12,000 kilometers from its origin point. 7 full circuits of the Earth. The air itself became the weapon, and it used the entire planet as its range. I want to ask you to comment below on what you're thinking about this disaster so far. Would you rather be close enough to feel absolutely nothing? Or would you prefer to survive, but having to live with the aftermath and lifelong physical and psychological trauma? If you're enjoying this deep dive, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters of this story. For a 40-meter wave to exist, something has to move the ocean. Not push it. Not disturb it. Move it. Physically displace a column of water from the surface to the ocean floor across an area the size of a small country. And do it fast enough that the water has nowhere to go but up and outward. When the Krakatoa caldera collapsed inward, it punched through the ocean floor and rebounded, transferring the full kinetic force of a 200 megaton detonation directly into the water column above it. Water is functionally incompressible. Every joule of energy had exactly one place to go, outward in every direction simultaneously at approximately 800 kilometers per hour, the cruising speed of a commercial jetliner. In open ocean, the tsunami was nearly invisible. A half-meter rise in the surface moving at jet speed across hundreds of kilometers of open sea. Ships in the Sunda Strait reported feeling nothing as it passed beneath them. They did not know it had passed until they heard what happened on shore. What happened on shore was this. The wave encountered the shallow coastal shelf, compressed vertically, and the half-meter of open ocean became 40 meters of wall. 40 meters is a 13-story building, moving at the speed of a jet, with the mass of the Indian Ocean behind it. The physical records are precise on one detail that I want you to pay close attention to. Coral blocks weighing 600 tons were found kilometers inland after the wave receded. 600 tons torn from the ocean floor and deposited on land like gravel. 165 villages were erased from the coastal maps of Java and Sumatra. Not damaged, not flooded. Erased. The physical geography of the Sunda Strait coastline was permanently altered in a single afternoon. 36,000 people died in the water alone. The ocean did not overflow. It relocated. 21 cubic kilometers of rock, ash, and pulverized volcanic matter were ejected into the atmosphere in a single event. To put that volume in perspective, imagine filling the entire island of Manhattan from street level to a height of 28 kilometers. That is the volume of solid material that Krakatoa converted into atmospheric particulate on August 27, 1883. The material did not stay local. The column reached 80 kilometers in height, placing the bulk of the ejected matter well above the weather systems that would normally wash particulate back to the surface within weeks. In the stratosphere, there is no rain. The ash and sulfur dioxide released by Krakatoa entered a layer of the atmosphere where it would remain suspended, circling the globe on stratospheric wind currents for years. Global average temperatures dropped by 1.2 degrees Celsius within months and remained depressed for 5 consecutive years. That number sounds small. It is not small. A 1.2 degree drop is enough to shorten growing seasons across entire continents, reduce crop yields at a scale that affects food supply chains across dozens of countries, and alter precipitation patterns in ways that compound the agricultural damage over multiple seasons. The historical physical records document crop failures across Europe, North America, and Asia directly connected to the Krakatoa particulate layer. Farmers in countries that had never heard of the Sunda Strait experienced harvest failures driven by a volcano on the other side of the planet. The sky itself changed color. Observers in New York, London, and Paris reported sunsets of an intensity that had no precedent in living memory. Deep crimson, vivid violet, sustained orange lasting hours after the sun dropped below the horizon. The Norwegian artist Edvard Munch, a thin-faced man with deep-set eyes whose portraits show a visibly anxious expression, recorded in his personal journals that the blood-red skies he witnessed over Norway in the years following 1883 directly inspired the overwhelming crimson atmosphere of his most recognized painting. The color was not artistic invention, it was atmospheric documentation. Krakatoa did not end at the Sunda Strait. It ended when the last of its particulate finally settled out of the stratosphere 5 years after the detonation. One volcano, no borders, no part of the planet left unaffected. The verdict is simple: we do not live on stable ground. We live on the surface of an active reactor that has been running for 4.5 billion years. And occasionally it reminds us of the difference between the power we think we have and the power that actually exists beneath our feet. Krakatoa was that reminder in 1883. The planet has not changed since then. Only our ability to forget has. Well, now that we've finished this terrifying story of Krakatoa, tell me which facts blew your mind the most. 13,000 bombs, 170 decibels miles away, a 40-meter wave, or 5 years of altered skies? I want to know which one truly hit you hardest. Subscribe if you want more deep dive breakdowns like this one, and leave a like, so this video reaches someone who still thinks human power is the greatest force on the planet. It is not, and now you have the data to prove it.